Philosophy class! Welcome to philosophy.
Yeah.
Hello, this is Mr. Colley, joined by the 2012-2013 Oakridge Upper School Philosophy class. Say hello, guys.
Hi.
Hey there, guys. Hey. All right. Well, first off, thanks to all who are tuning in to our brief discussion here on James Joyce's classic collection.
I'm responding to the argument of the city's effect on Eros, and I agree that Dublin prevents Eros from being attained. The boy from Araby goes on this quest fueled by a rather unenlightened feeling of love. It's kind of a shadow according to Plato's cave allegory. And the Dublin and the people of Dublin, like his aunt and uncle and the lady, they cause frustration and disappointment, and it destroys the boy's ambition and prevents him from pursuing or understanding love beyond the shadow that he's seeing in the cave. And we see this a lot with other characters in the story, as they desire something beyond what they already have in Dublin, but the city destroys their ambitions and aspirations, and they never escape from the cave.
This is Taryn,
Caitlin,
Marin,
and Layla.
and we're responding to Samantha and Brennan's response to our Evelyn post.
While we can debate over what the true nature of Evelyn's paralysis is, something that Joyce no doubt wanted us to do.
We would rather discuss your conclusion that Evelyn made the choice to stay in Dublin.
You see, we feel that her being in Dublin at the conclusion of the story is not the same thing as her choosing to stay in Dublin.
Joyce describes Evelyn while at the dock as a helpless animal, passive, and with a white face. To us, she is like an animal stuck in a fight-or-flight response, but is unable to choose between the two.
Had Evelyn actually made the decision to stay in Dublin, we think she would have been more comfortable with her choice. Even if she was not sure she made the right decision.
Evelyn doesn't choose to make the wrong choice or the right choice. She doesn't actually choose anything.
She just stands there, and even if it's obvious that she's not going with Frank, there is nothing in the text to suggest that she returns home or even remains in Dublin.
Maybe if Joyce had included some information on what Evelyn did after the boat left, we would be more comfortable with saying that she chose to return to her old life.
Instead, Evelyn gets Joyce.
And by that we mean denying a complete ending that prevents a character or audience from knowing the true intentions behind your decision. It's a word now. Feel free to use it.
Nice neologism, I like that. And last but not least, we'll be looking at A Little Cloud, one of the later stories of the collection. Okay, so take it away, guys.
All right, so our little group here is discussing A Little Cloud, and we wanted to start off by thanking the two students from Greenhill for their attention to the rhetoric of the story, because we thought that when it comes to Joyce, it's really important to look at the diction really carefully. So we wanted to start off by agreeing with your argument that the word choice of the passage distances Little Chandler from his family. But we also like to point out in the bar scene the embarrassment that Little Chandler seems to feel when he mentions his family with his son and his wife. And this is strange to us as readers because it shows an embarrassment that doesn't really make sense at the time of his mentioning of it. And then later in the final scene we get a glimpse of that.
I found it interesting when Annie arrives home to find her baby crying. Her first response to this was, "What have you done to him?" This anger demonstrates that perhaps it is not only Chandler who's keeping himself down, but possibly that his wife is also separating herself from him and his child.
I think it's interesting how Joyce uses poetry as his vessel to really make the reader feel what's going on in the story. It's pointed out that the protagonist, Little Chandler, writes in the Celtic style, which is derived from poets trying to really use Ireland's heritage to get their point across. But if you research Joyce, you find out that he really hates the Celtic style. I think one of the reasons Chandler has such a hard time finding his inspiration is that he's really trying to connect with an entity that he doesn't really have a connection with anymore. And he's trying to connect with Ireland. And his poetry praises Ireland, but he has a really hard time himself praising Ireland.
The allusions to Byron's poem give us insight into his life and mentality. The first passage suggests that the Eros that he once held for his wife is gone or dead, The second passage relates to something Chandler wonders early in the story. The narrow cell refers to his hope of escaping the little house. The essence of a little cloud is revealed when little Chandler says, I didn't do anything. This is exactly his problem. Little Chandler feels helpless and seems to lack the power of action to resolve his problems. He views his family as holding him back, just as Joyce thinks that the heritage of Ireland is holding itself back.
Okay, well, thank you guys. But before moving on, let's just take the time to introduce ourselves, this last group on A Little Cloud. Go ahead.
So I was Rourke.
Adam?
I'm Bessie.
I'm Trey, I did the last part there.
All right. And I do think Rourke is still Rourke, or we hope so. But before